Welcome back to the Strategic Shift. Your hosts, your favorite hosts, Priscilla Scott and
Diane Desio. Hello, we're here.
We are here.
We're showing up. We keep showing up.
I know it's going actually pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the main thing. You have to show up. If you're not showing up, then how are you going to do anything? You have to try. So why don't we talk about, okay, so where are we at in our business right now?
So we have finalized our business plan. The financials were the section for me that was the hardest.
And picking our products. We've picked our products now. And now we're on to branding, licensing, labeling. And then also when we get our licensing, going for grants, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the money, there are a lot of resources.
There are. And finding so a lot of the grant platforms feed off of each other. And I mean, you can certainly find grants on your own, but going through like a credible grant platform is important.
Which one do you like?
So for years I've used Grant Watch. And then recently I discovered Hello Skip.
Do you have affiliate links for these?
I don't.
We're gonna be having affiliate links for most of the platforms we use. So hopefully we'll have those in the comment section.
Okay.
And then so you like those two. How much are they? And
so Grant Watch is like $200 a year, and Hello Skip is, I think, a little bit less than that. But what I like is you can narrow it down. Like, are you looking for a business? Are you looking for a nonprofit? Are you looking for a veteran-owned business, a minority-owned business? Are you looking for, something in cybersecurity or in healthcare? Like, you can really narrow down specifically what it is that you're looking for. And not just that, they partner with like SBA loans and different opportunities. And today's topic is balancing it all and being a single parent.
Yes. So you could probably hear our kids in the background. They're off for vacation, and we brought them here. So if you do hear kids playing, that is what it is. We'll probably bring them on in a little bit. But so how hard is it? Like when you sign up with these apps, is it pretty easy? Like, can anybody do it?
Anybody can do it, but honestly, with grants, it's all about the narrative, right? Because you have to show like a true picture of like the business. Your heart, your passion has to come through in, depending on the grant, 1,500 characters. And not 1,500 words. And for anybody who knows me, I am not a person of few words.
Yeah.
So usually it's shortening that I have a hard time with. But I've been writing grants for long enough now that I know when I go through my narrative, I can say, okay, take this, take this, take this, take this.
Right. Now, when you do have the grant, when you go for these grants, you do want to make sure all your business stuff is in order, right? Like you don't want to just start going for them without having, your LLC, your, registry, your trademark. I mean, pretty much your website. Don't you even want a website?
Well, they ask for all of your contact information. A lot of them, you have to upload your business plan. Plus, when you're going through the business plan profit process, it gives you the opportunity to like actually think about like, how are we going to do business? Who are we going to market to? How are we going to reach them? What are the threats? What are the opportunities? Like you have to do a full analysis. So by the time you get to writing, like, for example, a common grant question is like, what challenges does your business face and how do you plan to overcome it? If you've done a business plan, you already know what the challenges are and you have some type of idea. But if you've never established your business, a lot of this, you're like thinking on the fly and it just makes it a lot harder.
Right.
So you want to have those. And you do have to have your licensing, depending on if it's a nonprofit versus a for-profit. You're going to need 990s, audited financials. So it is paperwork you have to have done up front.
What about, there is a lot of grant places, but they ask for money. Like, how do you know if it's real, or like how much would you want to spend on an average when they ask for these application fees?
It depends on the grant, but there are grants that charge, like some private organizations will charge for a couple of reasons. One, they want to know that you have skin in the game. And I've had grants that charge like 15, 20 bucks.
Okay. So that's about average, right?
Yeah.
15, 20.
And then stuff that's primarily like government backed federal grants, those usually don't have a requirement, but they want to see more serious financials and projections and stuff like that on those.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. Literally, we're going to be getting all our licensing and labels, branding, and then hopefully go for the money, because there is a lot of money out there for minority new businesses. Plus they have funding, like once we open up the accounts, we can find out what type of funding they have for minorities, or new businesses. So I'm pretty excited. So by next time, hopefully we'll already be past that step, and now just getting our samples and, getting our website done and ready to launch, hopefully. Like, we wanted to launch at the end of March, but it is not that easy, especially when you're picking products. Because we started with like, what, 15, 16 products?
We started with like 19.
19
the
products.
First list, when we were doing our break-even analysis, every line, I was like, it's just getting lost. Because as we were going through even like some of the products that we were picking, then it was like, oh, what about this one? And did you forget about that one?
Yeah. It's a lot of good products, but when you're launching a business, it's way too expensive to launch all those products. So we had to really define which ones that we wanted to come out with first. And I mean, I feel really good about these products. So I'm excited, and I'm ready, ready to get it going,
because I think a big part of that is, and you and I have talked about this a lot, like, we don't have the luxury of failing.
No failure.
I had heard years ago, and it has stuck with me for a long time, and it might sound a little bit insensitive, but I had heard, like, depression is a luxury that I don't have. It's not my quote. I don't know who said it, but I said it, right? Like, I don't have 5 minutes in my day to like sit in the corner and like pretend like the world around me isn't moving. And that is one of the pressures of being a single parent sole provider.
Yeah.
You don't have that kind of luxury to like have to get down and pick yourself back up after you chose to like just bury your head in the sand.
Yeah. I mean, literally, time is very valuable. It's going by very quick. I feel like I don't like to waste any time. I want to be as productive as possible. And juggling everything, you're right. You don't have a time to, there's times when I don't get to sit down till 8:00 at night, after I've done everything, and I'm moving from 5 a.m. till 8 at night. And it's just, I've gotten used to that, and it's crazy because when I do sit down, I feel like I should be doing something. There's there's a lot to be done. It's always something to be done. But once we get this business into its, into
the cruising lane.
Yeah, then we're able to kind of kick back and be able to enjoy. But this beginning part is, yes, it's showtime.
And it's critical. I think there is a level of underestimating how hard it is to get a brand new, from scratch, from zero business off the ground.
Exactly. And in today's day and age, I mean, you look at competition, like even my business as a med spa, the competition is huge out here in Las Vegas. I'm competing against plastic surgeons. I'm competing against dermatologists. I'm competing against casinos. I'm competing against spas, med spas. Like, this is all my competition. It's not just a spa,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not easy. Like, literally, you have to always consider, like, how can I bring more business in? How can I get my customers to come back? And it's just, it's not easy. Plus balancing with being a single mom, trying to give her the attention, because that's the most important. There's times when I know I have a lot of work to do, but she needs her time, and I have to give that to her. Sometimes I just have to put things away just to focus on her, because that is number one important. But yeah, it is. It's not easy, especially, I have a whole new respect for single mothers because, when I was young, I would look at other single mothers and I would be like, well, this is what you chose, and hey, you got this. But then when I became a single mother, it was like, wow, like it definitely, I look at women, especially when they have more than one. Um, it's an amazing job, but just to be able to do it, it's you have to have a lot of strength, so.
So it's interesting because I used to think I was raised by a single mom, and I've told people that, but that's not entirely true. Like my mom and my stepdad got married when I was 2, but she took the bulk of the responsibility in our house for all of us. And I mean, they're still married today. And it's funny because, well, and my dad's like the quiet, silent type, and my mom is like all over the place. And so it was, I don't think that I was really prepared in life for all the curveballs that got thrown at me. My son was very much planned. We did several failed rounds of IVF and IUI. There were a whole team of doctors, and to find myself in the position where we walked away and started over,
right,
was not anything I expected in my life. I was like, oh, like this is going to be like a lifelong thing, and we're going to build this empire, and
and I mean, I know, like, kids do need both parents to somewhat be balanced sometimes. And it sucks because, when you see your child off balance and you're sitting there trying to do the most you can for that kid, it sometimes it's not enough because the presence of that other parent should be there, a positive one, because if it's negative, then it can affect the kid negatively,
So one thing that, yes.
Yeah.
So your daughter is younger than my son, and a lot of the struggles that she faces now are struggles that I've already overcome with my son. So yes, you're absolutely right. And I will say one of the things that I've learned, and it's been more recently, is like balancing myself, because my mom always says, she's like, you're like a drill sergeant. Everything has to be at a certain, and I'm like, well, that's how I was raised.
Right.
You tend to parent how you were raised. But usually when there's a second parent, they can offset some of that when you're like, okay, it's time for you to kind of like back up a little bit.
Right.
So I feel like I've started to like give him time to not be so structured.
Right. Yeah, you have to. I mean, they're kids, like even me, sometimes I put a lot of pressure on my daughter, and, people tell me, well, she's only 6. And I'm like, yeah, but
I don't want her to end up under a bridge.
So it's not easy. And then every kid is different, so what works for one kid might not work for the other. Like it's literally, I feel like it's 2 humans getting to know each other.
Not just that, is like, for me, like I am a very rigid person. I've been told that throughout relationships, in career, in business, everything. Like I can shut my emotions off like that and move on and be done. And my son is extremely emotional.
My daughter is extremely emotional as well.
And I'm like, we don't have time for this.
And it's funny because they're both tough kids, but they are emotional. And this is something that I have to constantly, like if you can be able to control those, like recently yesterday, she was upset, and I told her, like, she's just like, I don't know how to control my emotions. I'm like, well, then you need to ask God. Help me, God, be more happy. Help me, God, be more grateful. Help me. If you can't do it on your own, then you need to ask for help. And the only person that can help you is him, because I can't do it. I can't control your emotions. So it is. It's like, okay, well, this doesn't work. Well, let's try this. If that don't work, okay, well, and it's a trial and error and a lot of praying for me,
So when you have no kids and you see that parent in the grocery store or with a cart and the kid is like screaming, you're like, ooh, I would never. Right? I would never. And then here we go, nevering like we'd never before. Once you have your own, like I remember Connor throwing a full blown temper tantrum, and we were on an airplane on our way to Panama.
Oh, wow.
No, we were on our way to Cuba. And it was like, the first leg of the trip was like 7 hours. And he is like losing his mind. And I am like pouring sweat. I had my sister-in-laws with me and my nieces and my brother-in-laws and all of them. They're like, do you want help? No. Like, I'm like, there's nowhere to run. And I just like, I felt horrible, but I think I was more frustrated and adding to his frustration because he wouldn't stop. And here we're trapped on this 9-hour
The nightmare, right?
It was horrible. And then I just had to learn, like, he's a whole other person with his.
Yes, you do. You know, because like literally, you cannot control. You could try to control, but to a certain extent, because they're gonna get to a point and they're gonna make their own decisions, whether you like it or not, and you just have to.
Can you think of any moments where with her you've been like, oh yeah, you're a whole nother person?
Oh, all the time. All the time. Like the things that she says to me or, the things she thinks about, I wasn't thinking like that. But it's a whole other, generation. We didn't have the tablets, the video games. Well, we have video games, but not like the ones now.
They have or do as a limit.
The like everything so on cable TV, we didn't have any of that. So it's we're dealing with a whole different type of generation. It's not like, oh, well, I didn't do that back in the day. You're right. It's two totally it's just different. And what worked for you is not going to work for your child. I don't care what people say. I mean, literally, I was beat as a kid. That did not stop me from running away or making my own decisions, whether I had to suffer a beating afterwards or not. I was going to do what I want, when I want, how I want, period. And that's just what it was.
So I've always been mouthier than my siblings. I'm at the bottom of the pile. And I remember telling my mom once, like, I'm going to call CPS. And she grabbed the phone and she was like, let me dial for you. And I'm like, she came at me with like, she was ironing. So we used to, as kids, we would have to iron my dad's work clothes. And she was sitting there like ironing his collar. And I still remembered to this day when she like flung that off the wall and I took off running. I want to say one of my brothers might have saved my life. Yeah, I do. And that was how my parents managed us.
Right.
Like it was like beat first, ask questions later. Right. And then if it was like after you got your whooping, if it was somebody else, they'd be like, well, you shouldn't have let him do it.
Right. So what's your top 3 things that you want to like are the most important with your kid? Like, what do you tell them?
Well, I've learned through therapy and a whole slew of things. I let him have his emotions, but I get to choose if I participate or not. So if he is having a moment, I'm like, okay, you do that. So, but I've learned to allow him to have his emotions.
Yeah.
So I will actually physically say, okay, you have your moment.
Right.
Process however you need to process. Take as much time as you need. But I am moving on. And when you're ready to join me, let me know. So that I think has been important rather than always being like, don't cry, put it away. Don't do don't do that. And then also in controlling myself and how I respond, like not always having, like I don't always get to participate in your temper tantrum.
Right.
Like, you can throw your temper tantrum and when you're done, the important thing too is to talk.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is probably the biggest thing is that when there is a tantrum of any kind, you have it. And then once everything is like calm, we go back. Cause I think a lot of times people tend to like you've moved on and you've forgotten about it. And so it's sweeping it under the rug, and it's teaching them, like, I can act however I want. I can throw whatever tantrum and there's no consequence. But in that moment, like, the tantrum is natural, but the conversation is where they're going to learn. It's how you deal with it after. So once everything is calm, then we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to walk you through reasoning through every step of it. And I think that single-handedly, because no matter how little they are, they understand.
Yeah, they do. They're very smart. So my main thing is like, because kids, they think they can get away with stuff. How they act with you might not be how they act at school, or how they're, So I always tell her, like, look, God is always watching you. Like, you have two choices. You have the good road and the bad road. And when you go down the good road, you're going to have good things happen to you. When you choose the bad road, you're going to have bad things happen to you. And I might not see everything, but he does. And it's been things where I've shown her, like, like, for instance, she found a penny and she was like, oh, I found a penny. I'm like, well, make a wish. She was like, well, I wish I could be good every day. And as soon as we walk in the store, a lady comes out of nowhere. Is like, oh, I got something for you. And we're looking like, what? And she gives her this little Jesus loves you thing.
Aww.
And I'm like, see how quick that is, so there's, and I tell her she's in control over those choices. Nobody can make her go down the bad road or make her go down the good road. I'm here to guide her. But at the end of the day, you have these choices and you're going to have to pay for whatever.
That's really important.
Yeah. Like, so those are my main thing is God, have God first. And then, of course, me, always respect me, love me, appreciate me, get as much as you can from me. Because I'm not going to be here forever and you don't know when. So, and unfortunately, I mean, that might be enough for a 6-year-old, but that's something that I had to learn the hard way, that get as much as you can from me, because kids will try to deny, like, oh, I don't want to hear it because you don't know nothing, but I want you to know, like, yeah, I know a lot, and please take as much as possible, get, from what I'm giving you. So those are the main things. And then, of course, be respectful to people and, just be a good person. Try to be the best Ida you could be, because you're down here for a reason and you got to make it count by being the best person you can be. You're going to make mistakes, but you have to learn from them. So those are like the main things: God, me, and being the best, So hopefully that works.
I think it will.
Girl, because it is definitely a learning lesson every day.
Well, and you see the people that are like monumental screw ups in life. And I wonder, like, did that start when you were 2, or was that more of like an 18-year-old decision?
Well, I mean, I think some people are literally like serial killers. I mean, the mothers were like, well, I noticed when he was killing cats at an early age. You think, like, so there's some, I believe.
Back to that conversation about like reasoning why this was not okay.
So, but yeah.
The killing cat.
Girl, like, yes, they, some kids are just, just have some really bad energy to them.
I have a cousin that I remember when we were little. He seems so much younger than me, but now when I'm doing the math, he's really only like 2 years younger than me. But when we were kids, he felt like a baby, and I was part of the older kids, but he's only like 2.5 years younger than me. Anyways, we used to call him El Diablito, which is the little devil. And he was horrible. Like, I remember he never wanted to leave our house. And when it was time to go, because in Costa, like, we didn't have a car or any, like, we walked everywhere we went. We were in a really bad neighborhood at the bottom of the hill. So when they would leave, my granddad would walk their mom up to catch a cab or get on the bus or whatever. And he would take off running. And in the middle of the night, they'd be chasing him. We were like the whole neighborhood. But fast forward, he's actually a very productive member of society today. So I was like, okay, well, I get up there. He turned it around.
Good. Yeah.
I think about, when did that problem take place?
I mean, yeah. And then also, again, like, things happen as, to kids that are traumatizing, and it does affect them their whole life, and some people can live with it, and some people it affects them, like where they're have bipolarness, schizophrenic, like all kinds of
Well,
things.
the traumas.
Yeah, traumas. They open up doors. Like I had a cousin who went to the military fine, and then he came out schizophrenic. I don't know, something happened, but you just, yeah.
And that's something that I worry about is, my child is sweet and kind and loving most of the time, but he is a lot to manage. And I worry that when I'm not around, like, if he's not everybody's cup of tea, like, what trauma are you going to cause in my kid?
Exactly.
Because let me tell you, as parents, we cause enough trauma.
Yes.
But then I think, like, I love him. I know that there's like some secondary thing, like he'll probably complain when he's older that, I don't know, we took too many vacations or something. He'll be in therapy.
I would love that.
But no, then you think, like, you turn your back for a second and anyone can hurt
Exactly.
your child.
It takes 1 minute, 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like a bodyguard. Like I'm literally like looking, I'm listening. If there's any loud noises, I feel like I'm literally her bodyguard. I do not, just because I've seen a lot, I've seen a lot of what things happen and how it has damaged people. And that is my biggest fear.
What's your biggest hope
for my daughter? That she just is, a good human being. I want her to make God proud. I want her to, not be a selfish, self-absorbed person, because like that's what we're here for, is to be good people. So that's what I want her to do, is I want her to be happy and find, not depend on people for happiness, but to be happy within herself. That's my biggest hope. Because if you can find that, then, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You have a peace. So that's my hope.
I think for my son, I would hope that he is happy, but also like a productive member of society. Oh, however that looks like, that he can like function on his own, especially as an only child. Like, I have 8 brothers and sisters, and
that was so many.
I haven't had to go through anything completely alone.
Yeah.
Like I've always, and like we'll joke, like I'll call my sister and be like, you'll never believe what your mother said. Or, vice versa. We have a lot of conversations about my dad, my brothers and I do. And so but Connor doesn't have that.
Right.
Like he's going to one day put me in the ground by himself.
Yeah, no. And that's another fear of mine, is because she doesn't, who can I, depend on to be able to raise her like I would. But you definitely, there's a lot of kids that aren't set up for that. So I think that's important. And again, me losing my mother has want me to put something in place immediately, because I've had that trauma. I've had that, like you're fending for yourself right now. You better, this is it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's putting that in place is super important.
Yeah. And, I hope he grows up better than I did financially. Yeah. And like recognizes the resources that are available. If he chooses to go into a traditional job, hopefully it's something that he loves. If he wants to own a business, that's great too. If I leave behind enough money that he can live on in investments, that'd be fine as well. But just, in Spanish, there's a saying like, we're improving our race. And so it doesn't translate perfectly into English, but it's the same. Like you want your next generation to be a little
better. Yes. Yeah. And then setting them up, like I said, putting them on your credit cards. If you have good credit, putting them on their credit cards at 12. So by the time they're 18, they have credit already established.
That's really important.
Yes. Starting a business form like an LLC for them, and building the business credit. So by the time they're 18, they have an established business. They could just put their business to that LLC, and they have the money, or they can get the money to start the business.
And for them to understand the work that goes into it, not just to get it, but to maintain it and the discipline. So I need to reach out to Chase and see if Chase Bank will allow me to be an affiliate, because they actually have this kid's first checking account.
Oh, okay.
And it's based and modeled similar to the Dave Ramsey principles.
Okay.
Spend, give, save.
Okay.
And I love it.
Really?
Because they can do chores and you can pay them out for it, but it's ultimately an account you control that they get to learn about money from. And you can put limits on how they can spend it and where they can, but it all ties into like putting in at a young age the values that we didn't learn until we were adults.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's important. I did start hers with Wells Fargo, but it was like a no interest, but it's kind of just keep open. But yeah, so by the time she is a little bit older, then she does have something established with Wells Fargo. But then there's also high yield accounts. You know, if you do have any savings, don't let it just sit there. Put it into a high yields account. Let it make 5% or 4% and just keep, you know, doing it until you figure out what kind. I mean, I don't know about the whole IRA and the insurances, but I want to find out about that. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways of just setting them up. I mean,
and teaching them what to do with it.
Because if you just send them out like, oh, okay, you're 18, go ahead, figure it out, then of course they're gonna not, you know. But if you're showing them, look, this is what you have, and this is what your options, you know, and giving them that option.
You know, we could probably do a whole episode.
We should.
On how to set our kids up.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of parents that would be something beneficial, because when they're little, you have enough time to build up to it. So by the time they do get older, there's a great little pot of money that they can access.
Yeah.
So, but more to come on our kids.
Yes, we will definitely
shift in the future. That's all the time we have for today.
Thank you for coming and joining us. Definitely subscribe, follow, save, share.
Yes. Talk to you soon.
Take care.